Okay, okay, yeah. So I'm just starting now. So easy class. All right. So I'll just do a share and show you. So when you come to sign up to Easy Class, it'll have a members thing. It'll say sign in and students, you enter the access code. That'll take you here to our group. Prepare OET letter correction and class. Now somebody's posted here. I'll just approve that. Somebody wants to join. Okay, I'll take a look at that. And the library now, this is where all the corrected letter files will go. Okay, so this is all the letter corrections from previous weeks, seminars. So you've got all this here. There's usually 3, 4, 5 a session. Mrs. Clark, Mr. James, Sharma, Kathy Jones, Newton, blah blah blah. So you've got letters. There's a corrected letter archive file here that's got about 184 in individually. So there's well over I don't know, maybe 300 letters there. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be putting the video links. I'm not sure. Some will go on YouTube and some will come here in Easy Class, because some of the videos on YouTube are unlisted, so it's exclusively for the Easy Class. So anyway, that's that aside. So let's get on with this. So letters. Let's have a look at the nurses' letters first. Okay, don't need my camera. I'll turn that off now. Okay, so I'm going to save the changes and I'll put these in Easy Class. So first things first then, what do we do? Well, we go straight into the task, as always. Who are we writing to? What's the purpose? Why are we writing this? So we're writing a letter to the district nurse. So we are the nurse here. Okay. We've got to write to the district nurse requesting follow-up care for this patient. So she's being discharged from hospital. GP is going to see her after the week, but we need to give her, well, you, the district nurse. So let's have a look. So she's been in, right, so she had an accident, injured the leg, foot, was in hospital for 3 days, antibiotics, blood light test, blah, 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 bit of medical history stuff, discharge plan being reviewed by the GP. So we need a follow-up care for this patient. Okay. Now, first thing here, Nurse James. I don't know if Nurse James is here. Is she here? Nurse James? Let me have a look. Manage participants. Nurse James. Is she here? Is she? Maybe not. Okay. First thing I noticed here. Okay, so we've got the Nurse James, Mary Frances, district nurse. So you have to get your address, and it's like, now Norris Thompson, is that her name? And it's a woman. That's rather a strange name for a woman, but still, that's not my affair. Now, but though, first, pronouns. Mrs. Thompson. Don't simply use her last name. It's Thompson. Okay, so Miss. Oh, somebody says she doesn't have Zoom in Sudan. Oh dear. Well, can't she get a VPN the same as everybody else does? No. Oh, anyway, so Miss Thompson, who has been at so first thing of all, why is it present now? I'll center this because there's, as we can see, there's quite a lot of errors in grammar. So why is this? It's right. It's present simple. I write. Well, it should be I am writing. It should be continuous form. Yeah. I'm writing to refer Miss Thompson, to whom? Who has been admitted to hospital. Now, we don't usually put an article in front of hospital. We simply say admitted to hospital. With the diagnosis, well, when you introduce something for the first time, don't you usually use indefinite article? Yeah, so we would say with a diagnosis of venous cellulitis. She required. Well, first, that should be capitalized. Then we need a verb, some form of be, am, is, was, were. She is required. Well, she's not required to follow up. She requires follow-up care, not she is required. So the grammar here is pretty bad. You probably wouldn't even get a C with this because we've got mistake. We've got 5 or 6 mistakes. We haven't even got 2 sentences in. So I'll send her this and hope she can improve. Right, so what am I doing? She requires follow-up care and management from your service. Okay, so what you could do is I'm writing to request a follow-up care and manage. So instead of this, I'm writing to refer blah blah blah. What you could do is like something. I'm writing to request follow-up care, your follow-up care and management for Mrs. Thompson. So instead of having 2 sentences, we could do it in a single sentence. Yeah, so you can do something such as writing to request your follow-up care and management of. Oops, I haven't spelled that right. There we go. I want to request your follow-up care and management of Mrs. Thompson, who blah 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 blah. Okay, so you could do that in a single sentence. Okay, so it's crystal clear right from the initial sentence as to what you want. Now, again, why do we have this full name? I mean, you know, it's Mr. or Mrs. Mrs. Thompson. Now, we need a date. We need a date. Usually, people say something like initially, or Mrs. Thompson was admitted on the so-and-so date. Yeah. So we need a date. Was admitted with the complaint. Well, right. When you introduce something for the first time, what do? We use it indefinite article, you know, with a complaint of injury or complaining of an injury or having sustained an injury. Actually, that is better in terms. Actually, she had fallen on the rock. I would. You could use a phrase such as having sustained an injury. Now that is better in terms. Okay, having sustained an injury in her foot. Well, it would be 2. You always have an injury to her foot and leg after she had fallen on the rock. Well, why do we? You only use a definite article when you've introduced something at first, and you do it again at the second time. Yeah, after she had fallen on the rocks or fallen on a rock, I think it is better. So Mrs. Thompson was admitted at some date, whatever date it says here, doesn't really swell, don't know. 3 days, so she's being discharged. So whatever today's date is, you take away 3. Having sustained an injury to her foot and leg, blood test and wound. Right, so articles. A blood test and the wound swab was collected. If it's passive, yeah, we need a form of be, am, is, was, were, and verb number 3 to make it passive. A blood test and wound swab was collected to check the white blood count infection. That's based on the result. Antibiotics were given. Passive, passive, B. Don't forget your verb. Antibiotics were given, and paracetamol administered as per the pain level. Apart from this, hydrosol dressing was provided, and who was educated? We need an object. Well, a subject here because it's passive. Who was educated? I presume you mean Mrs. Thompson. Yeah. And Mrs. Thompson. Now, I don't know about educated, because that implies a long-term process. Education. Educated. Was informed might be a better verb there, because education, I mean, can you educate somebody, or do you just say, oh, by the way, don't forget to keep your dressing clean? Is that really education? Okay, well, anyway, Mrs. Thompson was educated, stroke told, informed about the importance of dressing. What about it? Of keeping the dressing dry, keeping the dressing clean. Hydrosol dress. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Article. A hydrosol dressing or dressings. Yeah. All right. And dressings were provided. Okay. But though still, to make it passive, we have to have B. All right. Hydrosol dressings were provided. Mrs. Thompson was educated and informed about the importance of dressing what? I mean, keeping it dry, keeping it clean. I don't know. To minimize exudate. Well, exudate looks like a verb. It looks like a bare infinitive. I suppose you mean to exude is a verb, yeah. So when some wound emits a liquid, it's exuding. It exudes. So if this is a verb here, to minimize, well, it's an adverb. Then this is a noun here, so this should therefore be a verb. So to minimize exudation, yeah. So you've got to be careful here. So we've got an adverb here, so this has got to be a verb instead of a noun. Okay. Regarding Thompson, Mrs. Thompson's, and plural, a possessive, Mrs. Thompson's medical history, she has known the case of diabetes. She has known. Why is that present perfect? She has known what she has. Right. Again, it's difficult to know what, let's have a look. So medical history, what's it say about history? Okay, right. So she has had diabetes, presumably. Okay, so we need to change that verb form. So she has had. Known is no good. She has had diabetes. Now, somebody tell me, what do we need after this, after present perfect, when you're talking about a period of time? Somebody tell me. I'm not going to tell you everything. Yes, either for or since. Very good. So she has had a diabetes for 4 years, or if this was written in 2019, since 2015. She has had diabetes for 4 years, and she is taking 5 different. Now, would we say medicines or medications? Would we say medicines or medication? I suppose you could say medicines, but you could use it like as a compound noun, a medication. It's currently taken 5 different medications, a special calcium for bones. May I remind you, she is able to do activities. Do activities? Oh, okay. Of daily living by alone. Right. So what's the reflexive pronoun? What reflexive pronoun do we need instead of living, instead of alone. So it's either living alone or living by, what's the pronoun? Reflexive. What's the reflexive pronoun? Herself. She was able to do or perform. I don't know, do is kind of, you know, she was able to do, she was able to perform. I think perform is better, the activities, because do is very informal. I think perform is a better verb. She was able to either conduct or perform. Either of those are better than, you know, simply using do. She was able to conduct, perform the activities of daily life, etc. You could say living life by herself, as well as she is taking, now I don't know what this actually means, as well as she is taking self and regulated diet. Now, do you know what this is? Because this is very, I don't, you know, so she's saying, may I remind you, I mean, I would have probably put for your information, because if you say remind, it means that you've already told something once and it's a reminder. But if you've not communicated with this person before, it's not a reminder, because it's new information. Yeah. So these notes, I have one of those. But you see why I don't like this, may I remind you, because that implies that you have already communicated and told her this, and you have forgotten and you're being reminded. But that's probably not the case. So for your information, please note, blah, 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 as well as she's taking self-regulated diet, no idea what that means. Furthermore, monitor her pain level. Well, who is going to monitor? So who is a subject to this? Yeah, so, you know, who is the subject? Who is monitoring? And who is, so, and arrange her, so who's arranging? So this is not very clear. No idea who is doing what. Not clear at all to a reader. We have no idea who's doing what. Who is monitoring? Do you want the reader to monitor, or is she going to monitor her level herself? Who's arranging? Has a review been arranged? This is not clear at all. So it would be greatly, it would be, well, it would be, because you might not do it. It would be greatly appreciated, because it's a conditional sentence. It would be greatly appreciated if you could provide help with health issues. That's a good sentence, okay, for queries. So quite a lot of things that this letter requires. So you can see the grammar, not so good, lack of pronouns, simply calling her Thompson, which is no good. So articles, pronouns, verbs missing to make it passive, prepositions, possessive, reflexive pronouns, unclear, subject verb with no idea who's performing any of the actions. So Nurse James, we'll have to send you this. You'll have to work on quite a lot of things, I think. Okay, now, does anybody have any comments on this letter in terms of grammar, vocabulary? Because I know it's for a nurse, but still you can also learn from grammar and structure. Anybody have any comments or points or questions I want to make? Now, you can either type, or I can turn your microphone on and you can speak to us all. So you can either type your question or raise your hand and I'll turn your microphone on and we can hear you. if you want to speak to us. Anybody want to say anything? I can turn your mic on if you've got any comments. When we write he or she, is it formal or informal? Well, it's neither. It's just a pronoun. I mean, obviously, more formal would be, oh, I forgot that. It's Mrs. Miss is Thompson. So we use a title. If it's formal, we use a title. You know, Sir, Mr., Professor, Captain, we use a title that is formal. But usually at the beginning of your paragraph, you use a title such as Mrs. Thompson. Is it Mrs. Thompson? Am I? Yeah, she is married. So it's not even that. Mrs. Thompson, hang on. Mrs. Yeah. Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson. Okay. Mrs. Thompson, yeah. So usually the first mention in a paragraph, Mr. or Mrs., that's a title. It depends on the age, you know. Usually if they're adults, you call them Mr., Mrs., Miss, or Ms., and then you use your pronouns afterwards. So, for example here, Mrs. Thompson's medical history, she, and you know, she, her, yeah, her. So, in terms of pronouns, initial one with title, she, her, etc. That's how you usually do it. You can write it in, what was I going to say? You can write the patient if you wish, but I think it's better to use the name of the person. Somebody wrote, what? Paracetamol was prescribed. Well, that would be passive, yeah. But because we've already got it here, like, because we've got antibiotics were given and paracetamol administered. So you could put a verb in between here, paracetamol was administered, but because it, I mean, the sentence, we can tell it's passive anyway. Antibiotics were given, paracetamol administered. You could say was administered, but it doesn't actually matter. Well, if there is no title, Mr. or Mrs. is a title. Unless it's a child. If it's a child, then you use the first name. If it's a baby, you use baby so-and-so. You can use that, or just use their first name, you know. Usually you use the first name up to, I don't know, probably the age of about maybe 12, and you might use Miss or Master. Then over 16, you can use Mr., you know, 18, Mr. or Mrs. But usually if it's adults, as this person obviously is, I mean, she's 52, so, and she is, she is 52 and married, so is Mrs. That's the title. The well, if it's a patient, a particular patient, then you use an article. The patient complained of, the patient reported, etc. With a complaint, well, a complaint, if it's singular, with a complaint, if it's one, or the complaint, if it's plural, or if you're not sure, simply make complain into a verb, complaining, yeah, because complaints are nouns, so we need a pronoun or an article. So if you don't want to use that, or if you're not sure, make complain into a continuous verb. Mrs. Thompson presented complaining of, etc. Yeah, either one of those. Okay, so moving on to the next one, we'll do this nurse one. I think we spent a fair bit of time on this initial one. Okay, Mary Frances, is she here? Mary Frances. Is she around? Is she here? Mary Frances? No, I can't see her. Okay. So, Mary Frances, right. Mrs. Miss, well, first thing, it's Mrs. Mrs. Any other Mrs. Okay. I'm writing to request a follow-up care from Miss Thompson. Right. Why is this? So why do we have three sentences here? Yeah. And we wouldn't really begin a sentence with who, unless it's a question. So I went to request follow-up care from Miss Thompson, who's so I would right. So what I would do, make this right subordinate clause. Who is still recovering from appendicitis and is scheduled to be discharged today. So that's better. Instead of like three short sentences, we've got a single sentence there, a complex one, well, in grammar terms anyway, so that's is better. I'd like to request follow-up care from Mrs. Thompson, who is slowly recovering from venous cellulitis and is scheduled to be discharged today. That's good. Mrs. Thompson was admitted 3 days ago after injuring a leg on foot, resulting from a fall on the rock. Again, is this a special rock, a particular rock? Well, I don't think so. So from a fall on the rocks in general, or from a fall on a rock, but you can't just have the rock because, you know, the implies a particular rock. And so just make it the rocks in general. Initially, her pain, so I don't know if it's right. So she was admitted 3 days ago. Okay. And then we go straight to, initially her pain was managed with a paracetamol. Well, shouldn't this be farther down? Because you haven't done any investigations yet, you know. So she was admitted 3 days ago, and all of that. The various investigations was done. Now, right, I know that passive is formal, but you don't have to use passive for every single sentence. Some of them it just reads really strange and awkward. Investigations was done. The various investigations, it's kind of tests, right? The police investigate, right? You test. Investigate. You can use it in certain circumstances and conditions, but if a patient, if she comes in and she says, I've fallen down onto some rocks and she is pissing blood out of a hole in her leg, no investigation is needed, really, is it? You know, investigation, that implies more detailed, in-depth, you know, things like police investigation. So just, you know, make it tests. The various tests, so the various investigators, so we've got a definite article. When you introduce something for the first time, you don't use a definite article, do you? It's always indefinite. So I would move the pain thing a bit farther down and say various tests were carried out, because done, it's very informal verb. You know, if it is tests, usually tests are conducted or carry out, or she was tested. Why not just, you know, make test into a verb? She was initially tested with a blood and wound swab. Based on the result, she was commenced on antibiotics and her pain was managed with paracetamol. Now, I would put that in the same sentence because you're connecting, you're putting the same kind of pieces of information together. You know, so she was given antibiotics and she was given paracetamol. You know, so you're grouping information together. Instead of having this here, and then she was tested, and then she was given this, and she was dressed. So furthermore, she was educated for the same. You not think that reads a little bit strangely? You know? So why is this all passive? Well, it's all, you know, she was managed, her pain was managed, was done, she was commenced, she was educated, it was applied. That's like what, 5 or 6 uses of passive in a single paragraph. Okay, so I would move this, right. You can see I'm gonna have to rework this. So I would group this here, antibiotics, and her pain was managed with paracetamol. So, right, various tests were carried out. That's better than done. Okay, various tests were carried out, including blood and wound swabs to services in general. Yeah, so you make it a plural to detect infection. Based in the results, based on the results, because again, it's in general terms, based on the results. She was commenting on the paracetamol. Besides means alongside. So additionally is better here. Now it's either A, hydrosol, okay, was applied to minimize exudation. And she was informed or told, educated, and she was informed about the need to keep it clean, dry. What's it say in the case notes? Education provided for the same. Well, you've got to paraphrase that anyway. You know, you can't simply repeat. She was informed about how to, I don't know, maintain her dressing. You've got to paraphrase. You can't just use the same words or phrases because they will cross them out. Okay, right. So we've redrafted this paragraph now. Okay, this is a little better now. So Mrs. Thompson was admitted 3 days ago after injuring her leg and foot, resulting in a fault on the rocks. Various tests were carried out. Blood and wound the swab was based on the results. She was commenced. The pain was managed. Additionally, hydrosol dressing was applied, and she was informed about how to maintain her dressing. Okay. Regarding her medical history, she has had, no need for article, diabetes. Let me put the changes back on. She has had diabetes for 4 years, for which, why is that a separate paragraph? You know, for years, for which he takes 5 different prescribed medications, including calcium for the bones. For your kind information, why is it kind? Why is this information kind? I have no idea. So we don't need that. For your information, she is independent with active daily life. Okay. It would be greatly appreciated if you can make a visit and monitor. Well, you could put Mrs. Thompson, but you know, we know who it is, you know. Regarding her medical history, or you could, if you want to make it regarding Mrs. Thompson's medical history. Doesn't actually matter if you want to put a pro noun. So, okay, well, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could make a visit and monitor her signs of infections, exudate. I hope you educate her regarding wound care. Patient, please note your paracetamol in case of pain. she's advised to review with a GP after a week. Okay, so that's not so bad now. That's not so bad now. Well, someone's asking about the number of paragraphs. Well, there's only 4 really, because this is the closing, it's not, So you've got your reason for writing, which is essentially the introduction, the main medical issue or the social or medical history, depending on the question, that will tell you which should come first. In this one though, the main issue should come first. She came to hospital because she had an accident and we did this and this and this. Regarding history, okay, now she's being discharged. We want you to make a visit and etc. Yeah. So not too bad, not too bad. I'll save the changes here. I'll put this in. As the nurses are probably not in easy class, I'll probably post this in the group. What would be the score for this writing? Well, the first one, probably C, because there's many mistakes here. There would be no way you could, her could get over C in that one. This one, not too bad. This one, I would probably get a B. Yeah, I'd say you would, her, whoever wrote this would probably scrape a B for this one, because it's not bad. There's a very couple of very minor points, but this should scrape a B. It wouldn't be a very high B, but it would certainly be a B, more than C, a plus. But this previous one, you're talking like a C, because far too many mistakes. We don't know what's happening, who's doing what. So that's not so good. Okay, so what else have we got? I might have time to do a letter or 2 here, but then I've got to go. I've got some other business to attend to. So I probably won't have time to do all these now. I've got some other students to take care of. So I'll just do this. I'll do one. Indira, is that one yours? Okay. Well, as I said, I would have changed that introductory sentence there, because you had like 3 short sentences. You had 1 beginning with a relative pronoun. So it's better if you connect that in and make it a relative clause. Who. And as I said, you just got to watch a couple of things. Oh, that isn't bad. I mean, you can see the difference between yours and this first one. Yeah, you can see it's quite a lot of difference there. So anyway, a bit of practice and you should be fine. So what do we have here? Discharge letter. Okay. Right. It would not be safe. So they've had a physio or occupational therapy, skilled nursing facility. It makes me laugh, this, right? I shouldn't laugh, but mobility severely reduced after amputation. Really? You don't say. I shouldn't laugh, but come on, Oh, really? He's not so mobile. Now I've cut off one of his legs. Really? Okay. If you say so, Doc. Anyway, let's get on. So, Dr. Speed, that's we've got here. Mr. McCarthy, Richard Hospital. Okay. Well, that's very good. But what do you want me to do? I am writing to what? So, it's a discharge. So what? So you're informing, right? you've got to discharge to the nursing facility. So acute care and physio, yeah. So you are making a request. You want them to provide acute care and physio to this patient. What? You can't see what? What can't you see? Hang on. Let me try to share. Yeah, that should be all right. Okay, is that all right now? Yeah, is that working now? Okay. So let's have a look. What are we doing? So he's had his leg off. Preliminary amputation, takes his meds, wife is a primary carer. Non-compliance to his medicine, took off his leg, needs a wheelchair, so acute care and physiotherapy. Not a good idea to send him home because his wife is old. She might not be able to take care of him. So where's the reason? I'm writing to what? We need a reason. Why are you writing this? Right? I'm writing to inform you about the conditions of Mr. McCarthy's discharge. I'm writing to request your acute care management of Mr. McCarthy, who was blah, blah, blah. Why are you writing this a letter? I don't know. You're telling me a history, but you know, this should come later. This should come later. We want an introduction. I'm writing to request, writing to refer, writing to inform, writing to advise. What is it you're writing about? Why are you writing this? I don't know. Okay, when admitted, Mr. McCarthy had some long-standing poor control that to diabetes, with infected ulcer on his right foot, and examination confirmed with diagnosis of a diabetic foot. Can you have a diabetic foot? You can have a diabetic person, but can you have a diabetic foot? Ah, foot wound, right. It's a foot wound. It's not a diabetic foot. It's a foot wound. Okay. Of a diabetic foot wound, not a diabetic foot, because, you know, feet can't be diabetic. The wound might be caused by diabetes, but it's not diabetic. Okay, got to be careful there. All right. Appropriate investigations were arranged and vascular surgery consultation and a vascular surgery consultation recommended a below the knee amputation. Articles, unless it's, if you don't use them, it's going to be like case notes, and that's what we don't want. We don't want case notes. The patient underwent surgery, which was successful without any complications, went the same day and have good progress since. Well, we usually say it's usually made is the verb with progress. Well, you can use the term a diabetic foot, but in an English test, you know, diabetic foot wound, as in the wound was, you know, caused by diabetes, not a diabetic foot. Okay, what's under his wound? It's clear that's an infection as it had been prescribed. Have been prescribed or were prescribed, because from the context we know when he arrived, so you could use the simple past there. Medical history is not essential hypertension, essential disease, pass with a discharge by requesting his care at home. That is pretty good. Pretty good. The only thing that I would say is to put some introductory phrase before the, you know, introduction. Why are you writing this? So there's some good English here. I mean, this paragraph here is pretty good. That's not bad. That one is pretty good. This one, some of it looks a bit like case notes. There's a couple of missing articles here. And if you put, as I say, that introductory phrase, I am writing to request or advise or etc., that would be good. So yeah, that's not bad. There's some good English there. Some good English. Right, Dr. Khan. I'll probably just have time to do this at 1, then I'll have to go. So, Dr. McCarthy, Mr. McCarthy, I went to request for Mr. McCarthy, who's request what for being requesting what? Hang on, right. Dr. Khan, are you here? Is the author of this? Is he online? Is he here? No? Is he here? Right, because there's lots of grammar mistakes in this one. To request what? What do you want to request for Mr. McCarthy? And what is this pronoun? This relative pronoun here, whose? What is wrong with this? Anybody tell me, why is this pronoun not the correct one? Why is this pronoun incorrect? Because it's a possessive. It should be who is. Yes. Who is. Being Dusha back in from a diabetic for amputation. He recovered well, but I would like you to follow up on what? As a phrasal verb, you follow up on something. To follow up on his care, what? His management, you need something to follow up on if it's a phrasal verb. Okay, regarding his medical history, Mr. McCarthy was hospitalized with complete facial and foot wound for 2 weeks with complaints of fever, chill, and having a foot wound for 2 weeks. He had a long history of non-compliance with medication. Okay, now just dropping in short sentences with no obvious connection, that's not so good. You need to have something. Also, additionally, as well as this, yeah, not simply boom, drop. Here's a sentence. Okay, upon the examination or upon examination, because when you introduce something for the first time, you don't use a definite article, really. Upon examination, his foot was covered with pus, abscess, and gangrene. Look, culture sonogram, positive. I don't know how you pronounce that. If it's coxy or coxi, I don't know. As a result, so again, why do we have a definite article? Should be an intravenous antibiotic was prescribed and a surgical consultation was done. Again, you keep using these, was done, that's too informal, was carried out, was conducted. And why do we have a capital letter? Why is it capitalized? It was simply a surgical consultation. It wasn't a surgeon, so we don't need a capital. Was carried out. That's more formal, I think. Okay, the surgery right below knee amputation was performed very well and without the complication. You mean without complications? Again, misuse of article. After surgery, Mr. McCarthy was nothing and had a clear wound. Is it a clear wound? What? A clean wound? It was a clean, dry wound. He was advised to use a wheelchair for the activity of daily living. Now, I don't mean to laugh, but he's got one leg. You've cut one of his legs off. Therefore, I advised him to use a wheelchair. Really? As well, I'm sure he would never have thought of that himself. Anyway, he was advised to use a wheelchair for the activity of daily living because he's only got one leg. Okay. A review was scheduled after 2 months with a surgeon. Okay. Review of the above. Mr. McCarthy discharged from the facility for acute care and physio. Okay. He requires, right. he requires continuous monitoring of antibiotics in general and pain medication. My OV also requires assessment at home by a nurse. However, now I would put a definite article here because it's a particular occupational therapist. So it's not been mentioned before, but in the case notes it says that it has been assessed. The occupational therapist suggested that it will not be a safe discharge, but his wife has decided to take him home for better care. So we need to, okay. Should you not hesitate to contact me, yours sincerely. Okay. Okay, so you can see there's a few things here. Writing to request what, for example, who is, A for amputation, I would like you to follow up on what. So using articles that you don't need, etc. So there's a few things there. Okay, now it's 5 to 10. I have to go in a minute. Does anybody have any questions about anything before I go? So that's 4 letters done. I haven't got time for any more. I've got to get down to school. So anybody got any questions? Anybody got anything they want to ask me? Anything? You can I can turn your microphone on. You can put your hand up. I can turn your microphone on, or you can type. No questions? Okay. So what I'll do then, I'll put these 4 corrected letters, because not everybody's a member of Easy Class yet. I'll put them in the group, and I'll put the video link in the group. But in future, people are going to have to start subscribing, because why am I paying to have a pro version of Zoom when it's not of any benefit to me? Why should I do that? So for today, I'm going to put them in Telegram, but in future, easy class, that's the way forwards. For copyright issues, so people cannot share my materials online like they have been doing with E2 and Swoosh. Where can we see this? Well, you'll see it on YouTube. That's where you'll see it, on my channel. I'll put a link in the group once this video is processed. I'll have to stop it now. It processes. I've got to load it onto my channel on YouTube. I'll put you a quick link to my channel. You can subscribe to it now and see what videos I've got there. I'll just put this link here. You can have a look. Okay. No, I'll put that to everyone. Okay. That's my channel on YouTube. You can subscribe. You can see all these videos there. And I'll put the letters in the group. But in future, everything's going to go into Easy Class. I don't think the nurses are members. I don't think everybody can access all this. So I'll have to put it in Telegram for the time being, and maybe work out some other system in future. Right, well, since we've got no questions, I'm off. I'll see you later.